Welcome, City Biz audience. Thank you so much for having us today. I'm thrilled to be with Wendy Mann today. She is the CEO of the Crew Network. And this is actually an interview that's been 30 years in the making. So welcome, Wendy. And please give us a little bit of your background and how your background has led to you leading the Crew Network.
Thank you, Kate. It's great to be here. I was wondering if you'd bring up the 30-year in the making aspect of this interview, and I appreciate that very much. And I say thank you to the City Biz audience for allowing me to share the Commercial Real Estate Women's Network, or Crew Network, with you today. Well, I started out in this career, just to share a little background. I had never thought I'd be where I am today. I always thought I would be Barbara Walters. And yet here I am on the other end of the interview.
I'm Barbara today.
You are. And so when I was armed with my journalism degree from St. Bonaventure University, I just trucked it on down to Washington, D.C. and thought I was going to just march right into a studio and get that job, because I thought, what a cool job. You get to meet new people and ask questions. And so that was sort of my idea of how I was going to be in my career. But of course, I got to Washington. I couldn't find a job. It was the mid 80s, so it was not a great time to be entering the job market. And I have to say that I think, there's always a plan. You just may not be aware of it. But I had to find a job because I had an apartment and I needed to pay my bills. And I ended up just taking the first job that came along, which was with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Now, this little country girl from rural Pennsylvania had no idea what I was walking into at that time. But it turned out to be one of the most amazing opportunities for me to learn about the business world. And yes, I was low on the totem pole. I was a very junior person. But I really learned so much, and I was reading the Wall Street Journal every day. I was understanding what was going on in the markets, and it captured my imagination, like, oh, there's something else that I could do that would involve being with people, learning people, building relationships, and asking questions. And to that fact, I will never forget when I was in that junior role, going up and down the hall at this beautiful old building, if you're familiar with it, in Washington, D.C., and asking people what they did and why they did it and how it worked. And I just remember thinking, like, they must think I'm some kind of little, schoolgirl going out trying to find out everything. But that was my nature, and it's still my nature. So when you ask what I did, is I then had this 40-year now career in a profession called association management. And for those of you who may not know, there's an association for everything in our world. No matter what you do, where you work, or what industry you're in, there's definitely an association for it. And so in my journey, I have actually worked for associations that were one of the Citizens Against Government Waste, which was all about advocating Congress, and manufacturing, healthcare distribution, rural telecommunications. So I feel like that journalism degree and that curiosity and that eagerness to always be asking questions really came in handy as I built my career. And so I think that serves me well as a leader today. And I tell leaders, as I'm coaching and mentoring people, get curious and be curious, because the more you know, the more you grow, the more you understand. And it lends itself to all aspects of leadership, both the industry you're in, as well as the people you surround yourself with. So I would say curiosity, the ability to switch your mind off and on pretty quickly. In associations, any given day, something can happen and you're going in a direction you never thought you would be going. So that ability to sort of be able to switch, strategic thinking, I learned a lot of that. And really just a lot of lessons around people and relationships, because every time you go to an association, you're learning a new industry, you're learning a new group of leaders and volunteers who participate. So for me, it was the whole package, in a way that I had no idea coming out of school that it would be the whole package for me. And here I am 40 years later, very fortunate to be in a CEO role in an association that I both love the work I'm doing. In fact, when they hired me, they called me the double jackpot, because I knew commercial real estate and I already knew association management, so it was a great match. Sorry, that's a kind of a long answer for a quick question.
No, it's great. And, I can honestly say, when we first met and you hired me at the Association for Associations in Washington, D.C., I had left Chicago, working in commercial real estate for a commercial real estate association. And the first thing you did was ask me a bunch of questions. This newlywed from Chicago, and I mean, you were very curious. I will also say, you, enhancing women's careers it's really a divine appointment for you because you have always done that for me. You've done that for the team members that I worked with in DC. It really is part of who you are. So Crew Network was very fortunate. You've lived this mission for a long time, long before it was your mandate as the CEO. So now the next question, your conference, your Crew Network conference, sort of the big event of the year, is coming up. And last year, you very graciously invited me to the conference in Chicago. I was able to attend a luncheon, and boy, the energy in that room, just for one event, was incredible. You had a really great speaker, Marcy Rosel. She was a really accurate economist. She was very right about inflation, really smart woman. But this year's conference is coming up. It's in Atlanta. Do you have sort of that same caliber of speakers? What are some highlights about the conference in Hotlanta?
Well, yes, I'm so glad that you had the opportunity to experience that because I tell people, once you go, there are plenty of real estate conferences in the US, in the world, but Crew Network is something special. The energy, the vibe, the sense of belonging, it is just a really incredible experience. So when you ask me, what's happening there that's unique or usual, primarily one of the biggest things is the networking. Women come to this event to network with other potential business partners, to seek opportunities, to help them grow their career and their book of business. And it happens constantly, but it's all about building those relationships and your network. And we talk about it and say, your net worth is your network. So it's important to invest in it. And at the convention, what happens is we have about 1,500, 1,600 attendees. Some men come. It's not just women, but predominantly women. And we have, like other industry organizations, we have plenty of content around industry topics. This year, some of the big highlights, no surprise, AI, looking at the asset classes, especially office, that we know the office product is not doing well, and we don't see anything happening to turn that around. I have a great speaker from the retail sector, because retail, believe it or not, in this very online shopping economy, is actually doing really well among most of the asset classes, which is unusual. So we try to make sure we have content all across the spectrum. And then we have those special topics. And one of the big things for us is to always have an inspiring opener and a really exciting dynamic closer. So I'll tell you, the closer is a classical pianist, and she does storytelling and plays music during her closing. And so,
Oh, that's perfect for you too. Storytelling and music.
yeah, yes, I know, right? I love storytelling. I love piano. I actually didn't pick her, but it works for me. So I would say that, if you're looking for your people, and if you're looking for a tribe that will support you, help you grow, do business together, that's who we are at Crew Network. And it's a really dynamic event, and really brings the women in the industry together in such a cohesive way. And I'm super proud of where we are today. And I'm proud of all of the leaders that came before me that got us to this point, because I feel very fortunate that I've been able to build from a solid foundation. And sometimes that doesn't happen in our association world. So it's really, we're changing women's lives, and we're helping them build their business. So it's exciting.
Really great segue into my next question, which is, how does being an association with a lot of different volunteers who can share their talents, how does that help help your organization live its mission?
So, I That's a great question. And I just thinking about the business world and this community, at CityBiz that we're talking to is, the business world can be really harsh and an unforgiving place in some ways and in some sectors. And I think that Crew, being an association allows us to bring people together from all different kind of business organizations to share their experiences and to learn from each other. The women mentor each other, they support each other, and so I think it brings you to a place where you can speak freely and you are not judged and you're treated with respect and honor. And it's about the business, right? But it's also about your own personal growth. And anyone who denies in today's world that you don't need the human side of leadership in leadership, they're completely wrong. In fact, I just read a stat that said by the year 2030, emotional intelligence will be the number one skill sought in CEOs for corporate leaders. And so I think that what we're doing now,
That's great.
I know, right? What we're doing now is help build that. It is more in demand, but I think organizations are coming around to realize that their greatest asset is their people, and the people need to feel good about where they are and what they're doing, which sort of goes to our mission as well. That we being able to bring people from all these different commercial real estate companies together. These women. They might have stories that someone has, that someone needs to hear in that moment. And so that motivation and inspiration comes too. And they're serious. I can't stress this enough. It's not, women whining, it's not women drinking wine. It's a very sophisticated level of women doing business together. And they're so brilliant and so intelligent. I'm in awe truly that the work that they do in commercial real estate can be very complicated, and they're so well versed and talented. So I always try to really encourage people to understand that this is a business network, but at the same time you have the humanity piece, and it works so well. So the association is, you might in your company have people you can talk to, but it's so great to have an organization that you can come to where you have a little bit more freedom, a little less feeling maybe intimidated to really ask your questions, learn, and grow.
One thing I noticed at the luncheon last year was how your foundation, and you hired me. We both worked for an association foundation in Washington, and I've worked for several in Chicago. I was really super impressed with how you have harnessed and understood the power of the foundation at Crew Network. Just talk a little bit about how your past experience has helped expand, your bottom line probably, but also your mandate.
Well, the Crew Network Foundation and Crew Network Foundation Canada were put in place to help build the talent pipeline for the future. And, it's charitable donations. We depend on the goodwill of our members, the goodwill of companies to support that. And I think the fact that we're building the talent pipeline, companies get excited about that because they need to know where the talent's coming from, and diverse talent, which we really as an organization have that niche role. There's other organizations in commercial real estate that may be doing careers development and talent pipeline, but we are really focused on the diverse aspect of that. And so I think our foundation, we are, our first primary goal is really around the young students and providing scholarships to students in commercial real estate. And we also have research where we benchmark the status of women in commercial real estate, and we're the only organization who that does both recognizing the benchmarks of women, and we added 5 years ago, before COVID, before all of the challenges that we faced as a society, we added the entire DEI component. So we're now documenting that and benchmarking that, which I think will be a real help to companies and organizations to benchmark where they are against what our data is saying. And then, the fourth pillar is career outreach, and we have it in two pillars. We do career outreach to the high school level, because we know that students need to be told, young women need to know when they're in a junior or senior year in high school, or even some of our members are saying now middle school, to find young women who are intrigued by the opportunities that an engineering career or a construction career or a commercial real estate development career can offer them. And so we're trying to build that pipeline, both from the careers program, but also we do a program called UCrew, which is for university students, helping them to transition into careers in commercial real estate. And they've both been very, very successful in all the local markets we're in. And right now we have 78 chapters in North America. So you can imagine we're touching a lot of young people with the programs. And so for me, you acknowledge this. My first foundation job, I think I want to say 24 years old, and I had no idea what I was doing. And this just goes to show you how much experience in life can change you. But I really didn't know much about foundations back then. And I know that I've brought not just that experience when you and I worked together at my young, tender age, but also the experiences I've had along the way in other 501c3 charitable organizations to really build capacity, to build engagement, and the energy and excitement around doing something that's making a difference and that matters. And we've seen our contributions grow easily 50%, if not more, over the last 5 years. And we've tripled our scholarship recipients from, I think when I first came, it was 15 scholarships. We're now up to 30 scholarships, and we're proposing in the new year to be up to 45 scholarships. So, it's just, the support is phenomenal, and another way to fulfill our mission to bring young women into commercial real estate.
Bravo, 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 Wendy. I could feel it. I literally could feel it. And like I said, I could see how you really knew what to do and ran with it. Just a little.
Well, I will tell you the one thing that I will tell you about that, to your point about, is that when I first got to Crew, we had these scholars, right? These young women. We never brought them up on stage. And I thought, what a missed opportunity. So we started inviting the students to attend. We pay their way and we bring them up on stage so that it's real, that people see this is our future. And I will tell you, the very first time we did that, and I think it was 2018 or 2019, the very first time we did it, I got tears in my eyes. And so did so many women in the audience, because
it was very moving. I was there for that. It was very, very moving.
But so yes, that was a real moment for me where I said, yes, that's people, and people started giving them because they felt that moment.
Right. They could engage emotionally with it. Yeah. And I can tell you, as the mother of a senior in college who's a STEM student, an engineering student, it started for her in middle school. And it to be able to have, engineering, my child, but to have women that she can model herself after is invaluable. It's been invaluable. So, I think it's wonderful. Associations as a profession, they do such important work. So to professionalize that and to create a pipeline, I think is brilliant. And also commercial real estate. It plays such an important role in our society, in our communities. And, to be able to create those pipelines, formalize them, it's really exciting. It's really exciting. I kind of wanted to give a little bit more background about the Crew Network. It was founded in 1989. And you have talked about the 4 pillars: business networking, industry research. You are the leading producer. Crew Network is the leading producer of gender and diversity research in CRE. And there's a lot of research shops in CRE, so bravo to that as well. Leadership development and career outreach. So, we talked about the foundation bringing value and capturing value. But how does the Crew Network possibly change how does the value proposition of the Crew Network change people's lives?
Well, I think in two ways. I will tell you back in 1989 when we were founded, there were some wonderful, excellent women in commercial real estate, and it was completely a man's game back then, and they couldn't get a seat at the table or have a voice. They didn't get access to the big deals, and so their big idea was, look, what if we get together as women and we help each other out? We do deals together, and in this business, the bigger deals you do, the more deals you do. The bigger the deals are, the more access you get, and the more respected you are, and the more you get recognized. And so for us, the business network was the primary motivator because we knew we needed to support one another and do business together to get to that point where, and today I can tell you, there are members of Crew, they close multi-million-dollar deals where their commission easily $3 million, $5 million. They're doing huge, huge, magnificent deals. They're also doing a lot of really good work in communities like adaptive reuse, affordable housing, workforce housing, and multifamily. And so I think that business network, when you say what the value is, that changes your life. When you come into Crew, and I would guarantee you, any woman you ask, they will tell you how Crew changed their life. And it's because they had access to other women that could help them, whether it was through deals or through connections. And then the second thing is the pillar you mentioned that we haven't talked about yet is leadership skills development. We feel like we are need to be helping women prepare to be the leaders of the future. Well, we should be the leaders of right now. I'll say that out loud. But I also, so we do a fair amount of leadership training and development, both through our chapter structure, but also through the global network where we bring in speakers and experts to help women develop their leadership skills, because as opportunities become available for them, we, not just me, but the whole organization, we want them to be poised and ready and have the skill sets to assume those leadership roles. And again, I have to tell you that so many women have said, this has changed my life, learning these leadership skills, understanding who I am, getting access and connections. And so I think that value, never goes away, no matter how many years you are in your profession. And I just hosted a call yesterday with our past presidents, and not all 33 of them could show up, but about 20 of them did. And they, to this day, are still connected. They do, some of them are retired, so they're traveling together. But it creates these and strengthens relationships that become friendships that stand the test of time. And so I think there's deep value in that, both because they're women and they're looking for that, but also from the business aspect of working with people you feel like you can trust, or you can trust.
I remember my one of my bosses at the Institute of Real Estate Management was heavily involved at the beginning, and I know other women from the association, practitioners, property managers were too. I've known about Crew really since I started my career, but it's only recently that I've become involved. And I'm not a member yet, but I'm about to become one. So,
Well, I'm gonna recruit you. I'm going to recruit you, and I'm going to recruit your daughter.
That'd be great. I can tell you the Chicago Crew Network is fabulous. And one thing I noticed that you're doing, I think this is a national program in Chicago, is you are having a training for members to understand and be ready to become members of boards. So that not only would change those ladies' lives, but or those members' lives, I should say, because men can be members too. But it'll change those boards. So I think that that's a really interesting program, and anything you want to say about that. But that's certainly a case in point of readying people.
Yeah. So first, I would say it's global, not national. We are a global organization today. We have 13,500 members, and we're in 13 countries, which is a real growth for us and exciting. The program you're talking about is our corporate board training. And we started that because so many women were getting to I wouldn't say twilight of their career, but they were getting toward, senior executive roles and C-suite. And they were feeling like, what can I do? And we know that boards are now looking for women. And so we felt like if we offered a program that could help prepare them, they would be positioned for those opportunities. And, what's happening, if you think about the business world, it used to be, I'm not sure it will be after COVID, but office and real estate is one of the biggest expenditures of companies. So I think that boards, a woman from commercial real estate would be a great value to have on your board, to have that perspective of how real estate works and what you need to think about and how you think strategically about it. I think so many women would be a great asset on corporate boards because of that knowledge that they bring to the table. Now, as I said, life has changed in the last, but I think even with hybrid, space is still going to be a big part of corporate life. So we're hopeful that we're preparing women. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it's a brilliant program. Yeah, that'll be a brilliant program. I encourage women to sign up for it. But I think it is in Chicago, if I'm not wrong. I'm not, yeah.
It is. Actually, the instructor is an amazing woman she's head of the women's executive leadership forum at Northwestern. And she does a phenomenal,
My alma mater.
yeah, she's a phenomenal uh, teacher, I would say. And so she does the program, and it's just been great. So we're excited about it. And this is not our first time. This will be our second time offering it. And we're hoping to attract even more women this go around.
That's great. Sounds really, really interesting. I know a few women interested in attending. It's interesting you're talking about a global, sort of a love of both of ours. It sounds like you're forecasting growth, and I was wondering if you wanted to talk more about sectors. It sounds like you'd mentioned retail, sectors and locales. I know you're expanding in Europe and maybe even a little in Asia. If you want to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Yes, I came into this job 6 years ago with a mandate to take us global. And within the first few months, the groundwork had been laid in advance for Crew UK to launch. And so within 2 months of being on staff, I went to London and we launched Crew UK, and it's now a thriving, we have, our chapters can have members anywhere from 80 people to 600 people. And our chapter in the UK is over 100 now, which is really good growth for us. And culturally, it's very different trying to go into European markets. Women they're not as, I guess, they're not as volunteery, if I can say, and we're very yeah.
America is right. America really, we kind of own volunteerism, which helps, provide the culture for associations to thrive. So yeah, that's a big part of it. Building something that doesn't exist is tough.
It's a very different mindset, and so we're working through it. But we've since launched Crew France in 2022, and that's coming along. They are really, because of the language, they're really leading that. We're not as involved in the day to day, but we also have members in Italy, Germany. I think one person from Geneva. So it's not critical mass yet. But I always say to the leadership, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And we're building our brand and reputation over there by participating in some of the global real estate events. So it's been very positive. And again, once they experience it, then there's always like, oh, I get it now. So I think it's we're an experiential type of learning experience for Crew, because I think once they see all the women gathered together and networking and talking, it just becomes like, I need to be part of this. And I think that's what we've been building. I always say that we're building an organization where people have their face pressed up against the window and they're looking in and they're saying, what's going on in there? I need to be part of that. And that's who Crew is today. And that's who we're going to be going into the future.
That's great. How has your team and your boards and your chapters, or do you call them chapters, or are they chapters? How have they helped? How do they help grow the organization?
Well, I'll start first of all with the members and the leaders. We're a network, right? So everyone in this network has connections. So when we want to grow global, or if we want to set up meetings in Europe, we contact our global companies that are members and say, who can you put me in touch with across the pond? And they have been more than forthcoming with providing those connections and contacts, which has enabled us to build that, what we have so far. And so they're influential in that way, two ways, the connections, but also the experience, a testimonial from someone in the US to say, this is how my life changed because of my participation in Crew. It goes without saying that it really makes an impact. And so telling our stories, having members share their stories and share their connections has been really a factor in making sure that we are making those inroads. So, and there was a time, and I'm very honest and open and transparent about this, there was a time when people would say, well, why are we going global? What's in it for us? My thing is what's not in it for us? What can we learn from other places and other countries? And oftentimes, I'll tell you, when it comes to commercial real estate sustainability and some leading edge technology things, that's coming out of Europe. That's not coming out of the US. And so for us, I think there's a real opportunity to learn from others. And, that's my curiosity at work. So helping others understand this isn't just an insular group where it's all about the US. I mean, we have 1,400 members in Canada, so we're really North American. But I think that being open to, and I also think you all here, you, how many ever in the US and North America you are, what the value is and what the experience is. Don't you want women everywhere to have that? And the answer for me is a wholeheartedly, absolutely. We need to be there. We need to show them what's possible when you work together in a network like ours.
You're kind of like the Ted Lasso of commercial real estate. You started out in the UK and you're curious, not judgmental.
Oh, I love that. Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. Well, and I will tell you this, our staff, so our headquarters is right now in Lawrence, Kansas. We have staff in the Washington, D.C. market, which is very heavily, like Chicago, very heavy in associations. So for skilled positions that people come out of associations, we're hiring here, but we're keeping our office in Lawrence as well because we have a great team. Our back office administrators we have a lot of staff there that have been with the organization for a while, and then we're getting fresh new people in too. So it's really creating a mix of the institutional knowledge and the fresh eyes that I think are going to be really important for our growth and development going into the future.
That's great. And location, where you work, we've learned. I'm going to just move ahead and ask about return to office. Do you have any, it's obviously a challenge for a lot of companies. It's certainly a challenge for the industry. Do you have any thoughts on it, or does Crew have a policy statement around return to office?
So I have a personal opinion that I'm not going to share.
Okay, that's fine.
No, I will share. I love being in the office. I love being with my people. I thrive, and that's who I am. And I get it's not who everybody is. I think we lose something by not being in the office at least 3 to 4 days a week. And so my hope in our policy during, what we came up with now is, and I feel really strongly about this, is that we're a commercial real estate association. Our members are struggling in the office sector. We need to show up and be in our office to support the industry we work in, number one. And number two, we have a fiduciary responsibility to our members who are paying for our space that I feel like, how can we not show up here every day? And so while we're not there every day, we are there 3 days a week. And I think that the culture and the collaboration and those chance conversations that can really make a difference for the organization, they're happening when people are together. And I know a lot of people will say you can do that virtual. It's not the same. And two things I will say long term. For the industry, office is not going to come back in 3 to 5 years. It's probably going to take a lot longer than that. From what I'm hearing, the younger people do want to come back more than the older people, which I find really interesting, but maybe not shocking. But everyone's saying office isn't dead. Office is going to do what it's done, just like retail did. It's going to transform. It's going to become, and then eventually things will settle back in. And I think the other piece of this is that's the industry piece. The societal piece is that I think that as a society, human connection, there's no exchange for that in person, that in-person human connection. And I think if we look back on people who were affected by COVID, or the young people coming out of college, going to work in isolation in a virtual environment, completely virtual, they will never have the same experience as those of us who came out of college. When I came to Washington, I knew nobody. If I had taken a job that was virtual, I would have no friends, even though I'm a huge extrovert. So I think it's the social value, it's the cultural value in the company, it's the collaboration and the happenstance conversations that are really important long-term in both society and in our work. So I will get off my soapbox there.
No, I think it's a really important issue. And, for women, I mean, the flexibility is certainly, if they have certain life choices, but it sounds like moderation. You're not saying 5 days a week. You're saying, some kind of flexibility. So I completely agree.
Right. Well, and I would also, to your point, so, we've done a number of studies on women during COVID, women who we lost a huge number of women from just the general employment roles during COVID because they had double or triple duty caring for elderly parents, small children, teaching the children, work. It was really difficult. And a lot of women struggled through that. And I would never minimize that. I think what I'm most proud of for our organization is even before COVID, we had a flex policy that said, do what you need to do. And I had employees that kids, I know one woman who worked with us during that time. And before that was, her children were very active in sports and she traveled with them. And I said to her, I don't care where you are, as long as the work is getting done. And she never let me down. And I think that's having the combination of 3 days in the office and the flexibility, if you need it, it's always there. So yeah, I mean, I think it's the best of both worlds, really.
I agree. It sounds great. Another issue that's happening in the marketplace, and I note that you're a member of the CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion. I'm just wondering if you're seeing any organizations back away from their DEI commitments that they possibly had made, and if so, do you have any response to that, or does the organization you're affiliated with?
Yes. So first, thank you for acknowledging that I signed on to that CEO pledge several years ago. I would also mention that Crew launched its own commercial real estate CEOs for action on DEI in 2020. And that's something that we had actually been working on before, it became, the buzzword of 2020 into 21. And I will say this, in commercial real estate right now, companies are struggling. Budgets are limited. If you knew how much debt is building up because people can't pay their office rent, the tenants are leaving buildings and companies can't make money. Like, there's a real problem right now in commercial real estate for many companies just struggling to keep things together, to not have to let people go, even though many of them have already laid off significant numbers of people. This business is being hurt by the slow session or the non-recession or whatever it is, because building has slowed down significantly, and especially in the office side. And so have things changed? I think things have changed. It's not the number one conversation right now because there are other financial conversations that have to be had, and our priority for the firms really to survive in some ways. And so I think it's just not the number one conversation, but I don't think it's gone by the wayside. I think the buzzword has become ESG, even though people don't want to talk about ESG either with DEI. I mean,
They'll talk about the S, but not the E or the G.
So right. So it's particular letters. So I think, we're in a moment in time that I think companies are struggling to a certain extent. I mean, think of the banks. how much, has come into receivership from, debts that can't be paid. And so I think that it's not that people have taken their eye off the ball. They're just not in that total focus we were maybe 2 years ago. I'm not going to let it go, Kate. So you can rest assured that in commercial real estate, we're going to keep talking about it. But I also think we need to give people grace for a moment in time when it may not be the first thing they think of. But there are companies that have made a huge investment and they're keeping that investment. And I won't name names, but I know a number of them are continuing to commit to working through DEI and diversity and belonging within their companies. So for us, I still see it's part of the conversation. I think maybe in some corporate settings where you're not in commercial real estate, there might be different conversations happening.
Good to hear. I'm glad your finger is on that pulse. So appreciate you sharing your perspective. Look, my last two-ish questions relate to your leadership style. And I do, I am privy to some of your personal life. And one of the things that we had talked about a few years ago was that you you have focused on intentionality about the quality of your life. How did you come to that, and how has that impacted your leadership style?
Wow, Kate, this is probably the wrong day to ask me that question, because I was just telling someone that I actually have not been really good about my personal life. This job, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? It's super demanding, and I love it so much that to me, working 12 hours a day is not a big deal, because I just love what I'm doing so much, and it means so much to me personally.
That's quality of life. If you love it, if it's not a chore.
Well, I guess you're right. How many people can say they love their job and they get up every day like, let's take on the world? So I feel very,
Yeah, I think it all fits.
yeah. Well, I wish I could say that it was intentional that I'm sitting here. I think I was very fortunate that this came to me at a point in my life and in my career that was just so perfect to pick up the mantle here. But I will say this, that I have a lot of interest because of my curiosity. And so I've really made a commitment to making sure I don't stop doing things that I love. Like, I want to write a book, so I go to writing conferences, because that is the only time I will shut my blinds, put my blinds on about everything else in my life and my career, and just write at a retreat for 3 days. So I have no idea when the book is going to be done or come out, but it's something that means something to me. So I find a way, and sometimes it's just forcing myself to go to and not forcing myself, but committing to a retreat that I know. And I will tell you, I'm very proud that I turned 60 this year. I don't know if I told you that, but I'm very proud that I turned 60. And one of the things I decided to do was every month of my 60th year, I'm trying something I've never tried before, seeing something I've never seen before, or experiencing something I've never experienced before. And I have had a phenomenally fun year of intentionally putting myself out there to do. Some of them are simple things. Some of them are not so simple. And
Weren't you catching crayfish or something, or crabs? That's what it was. I saw that on Facebook.
oh, I learned how to crab. So my daughter, yeah, my daughter lives near the Chesapeake Bay, and so there's a lot of crabbing that goes on down there. So I wanted to learn to crab. So I went out on a boat with a crabber, and he showed me how to crab. I actually, a simple thing I did. I've lived in Washington, D.C. for 40 years, and I had never been to the top of the monument, the Washington Monument. So in January, I went to the top of the monument. So that was a simple thing. But the really hard thing, the hardest thing I've tried so far this year was curling. I went curling, the Olympic sport curling.
Oh yeah, yeah, and cold. It seems cold to me too.
Well, I will tell you, it doesn't, you look at it and it doesn't look, let me tell you, it was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Wow.
And it hurt my body a lot, because you fall a lot on the ice and it's hard, and you're 60, right? So it doesn't feel as easy as before. So that's the kind of thing I encourage people to do too, is number one, to take small bites. Number two, even if you have kids and you're working full time and you have a husband and you have responsibility, if there's something you love to do, whether it's go have wine with friends or take a weekend away, do those things. And there's no time like the present. And I will say, I was interviewing another CEO. He's the CEO actually of a real estate company, Camden Properties. And I asked him what his plans were for retirement. And he said, I have no plans. I'm doing everything I want right now. And, that hit home with me. And I thought, you know what? He's absolutely right. What do we keep saying? Well, I'll do that in retirement. I'll do that in retirement. You know what? Do it now. And so I'm sort of on this kick now of, in the moment, if I want to do something, I'm going to do it, because who knows? We don't know if we have our tomorrows, right? So, and I guess maybe the older you get, the more you realize that as well. But so I've been having a good time with at least doing something once a month.
Do you still have your radio show?
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't mention that. I actually had to give up my radio show because it was really too much with this job. So when I took this job, for the listeners, I actually had a local radio show on public radio in Arlington, Virginia, and it was called The Story Hour with Wendy Mann. And it was all about storytelling and how stories are so important to our life. That's how, it's how we connect with people.
Leaders are storytellers.
Leaders are storytellers. And I actually I interviewed filmmakers, authors, poets, musicians, anyone who uses story in some art form. And I had a phenomenal 3 years. I did that. Phenomenal 3 years of, again, meeting all kinds of people, asking them questions, learning about the craft of storytelling myself. And it was just truly one of the things I've thought, I'm glad that I did that. It was the right time in my life. And I will go back to it. I guarantee you, I will go back to maybe a podcast now more than a radio show, but I will go back to it someday again, because it was just pure joy, and it fed my Barbara Walters, my inner Barbara Walters.
Well, I have just kind of one more question. Sounds like you fill your cup as part of your strategy, your leadership style. It energizes you. One time I heard someone say that leaders' most important project is themselves. I don't know if you'd agree with that or not, but maintaining their own self-control, self-awareness. But I just wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing a few of the ingredients to your secret sauce of leadership.
Wow. So my husband, who is an executive leadership coach, as am I think, I went to Georgetown University's through their executive leadership program in 2018. My husband did it 20 years ago, 20 years ago. And I'm going to steal this from him, which I'm giving him attribution, so it's fair. But he says we are a work in progress until we die. So we say WIP, work in progress, until RIP. So for all of you out there listening, it's WIP until RIP. It never ends. And if you really want to be a great, by Brian Gutman, my husband, if you really want to be a great leader, you're always, and to this day, I'm a CEO. I still take time to reflect on particular situations or conversations. What could I do better? How could I approach something better? I'm always thinking before I go into things. So I would say, the lessons I've learned are really don't just prepare for a meeting, but over prepare. Know what you're going to talk about, know what you're going to say. Understand who the people are that are around you in leadership, whether it's your staff or whether, like me, it's a board of directors, and what they need from you and what you're giving them. Is it mutually beneficial? I still trip up. No, and this is the other thing I think I've learned, and I think there's a lot of people like me out there, is I'm imperfect. I will never be perfect. And I say that now in public speeches. I'm like, I am not perfect. And I try to limit the mistakes I make. And if I make mistakes or missteps, I take the challenge upon myself to look in the mirror and say, how can you be better? And I think that is probably one of the most important things for leadership, is being self-aware and being able to self-examine, and decide whether you need to change or something else needs to change. But a lot of what happens, it's that old saying that life is 10% of what happens and 90% how you react to it. And I think if you take that in combination with a high level of emotional intelligence, you can really grow your leadership skills. And funny enough, I just had a new senior executive team member added to my team, and she asked everyone else, who's the most emotional person on the executive team? And everybody laughed and said me. Because when something really great happens, I'm like, but something like, I'm like, so I said, but you'll get used to it. So I know that about myself. I sometimes have to calibrate it, but it's really being in touch with who you are and the people who are around you and what they need from you. Thank you for asking.
Well, this has just been so delightful to talk to you, and really, I feel like I learned a lot, and I want to continue to support you and Crew Network's work. And I really wanted to thank Edwin Warfield and Raj and the CityBiz team. They, in doing this interview, are supporting commercial real estate and women in commercial real estate. So I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, and cheers from Chicago to Washington, D.C. Thank you. Thank you, Wendy. Here's to many more years of mentorship and friendship.
Thank you, Kate. Yeah, thank you, Kate.